Hi everybody, welcome back to Between Two Succulents. I'm Megan Graves, the virtual bookseller. It's great to be back after a glorious 2-week hiatus. My guest today is Baynard Woods. He's a journalist, rock and roller, all-around bon vivant. And today, most importantly, we're talking about his role as co-author with previous guest and friend of the show, Brandon Soderberg, of I Got a Monster, which details the rise and fall of Baltimore's gun trace task force. That is available to order on the Charm City Books website. Baynard, thank you for taking a few minutes to chat today.
Oh, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So your book comes out tomorrow. Do you have plans to celebrate?
It's weird. I never thought that I'd have a book out without being able to actually celebrate and go to a bar or something and blow off that kind of steam. But we're doing an event at Red Emma's, a virtual event. We were really trying hard to figure out a way to do something outside and live, but it just didn't seem responsible at this point. So we decided to wait on that. So we're going to go around in the afternoon and sign books at bookstores. I think y'all got an email from Brandon earlier about that. And then we're gonna do the event, and probably I'll sit on my rooftop and get drunk after that, I suppose.
That actually sounds like an ideal social situation to me.
With a bunch of plants. I hang out with the plants mostly now.
Yes, you fit right in here. So after we chat, everybody should head over to redemmas.org. You can find more information about the virtual launch party, and we will also provide a link in our show notes. So I would just say, Baynard, you can consider this your dress rehearsal. You're welcome. So let's get started. I'm going to introduce you to our succulent VIPs. You're going to tell me which one is speaking to you today. A brief disclaimer that one or more of these may not be actual succulents. We've suffered some plant losses in the virtual bookseller family. Moving on, we don't need to talk about that. First up, this is a pincushion peperomia. They're known as the polite plant because they won't overgrow or overshade their neighbors. And then we have the molded wax plant. It's stemless, so it's known as one of the shortest succulents. Baynard, just a gut reaction. Which one's speaking to you?
I think, I'm torn, but I think the pincushion.
Yeah, I was hoping you would say that because it sort of matches your very impressive coiffed do. And I respect that about you both. So, digging into the reason we're chatting today, your book, I Got a Monster, exposes corruption in the Baltimore Police Department, and it was part of a massive cover-up on all levels, from plainclothes officers on the street to state prosecutors, federal agencies. And I'm curious if you'd be willing to talk about whether during your process of research you ever feared for your safety or anything like that.
I mean, I wouldn't want to overstate it all. There are right now, reporters in Portland and all kinds of places who are in real danger. But we did have a couple moments that were a little bit iffy, where especially we were driving by one of the cops' houses and a unmarked car came driving right at us and then went around us. But for the most part, I have felt relatively secure as much as one does dealing with BPD. I am sort of happy that we're wearing masks right now, though. That's that's the one nice feature of the masks.
Absolutely. So you mentioned Portland, which sort of brings me to my next thought, which is that the movement for defunding and or abolishing police forces is really gaining traction across the country. And I wonder what you would say to someone who maybe is having a hard time imagining a world without police, or who believes that police are necessary to maintaining the social contract.
I mean, first, it's not surprising that we think that. We've had our whole lifetimes of propaganda and every kind of, from the TV show Cops to the Law and Order franchise to, back to Starsky and Hutch or whatever, showing us how important police are. And not only that, but showing us that they have to break rules in order to get it done. It's always the square, tight-ass lieutenant, that's the only time when there's like a minority character on the shows. And then it's like the white guys have to bust heads to get it done. And so it's not surprising, but especially if you're white and you think about your own neighborhood, you do have a neighborhood without police already. You do have a world without police already, at least in the way that like the Gun Trace Task Force functioned. You don't have people coming and searching you as you're walking down the street. You don't have people making you drop your pants on the street to make sure that you don't have anything. They don't make you sit on the curb for an hour. They come when you call them. And in fact, in most of the red line black neighborhoods here in Baltimore, they don't come when you call. After Freddie Gray, there's a survey that showed that most people feel that they're over-policed and yet underserved, because when you call, they don't come. But when you go to the store, it takes 3 hours because they sit you down and search you. So most white people in this country already live in a world that in some ways doesn't have cops like this. And in fact, all of the white Second Amendment people who are terrified of the jackbooted thugs kicking in their doors and taking their guns, that's what the Gun Trace Task Force did every day to poor black people in Baltimore. And so we have a real double standard already. And so really all it's saying is it's, again, extending our civil rights. I would tell them that it's part of civil rights of asking that other people be able to live the way that you live.
Well said. So for people who are investigating this concept for themselves, are there any resources or books that you would recommend that sort of outline alternative forms of justice and community assistance?
I mean, there's a huge literature, and I'm not an expert on community assistance and justice, and there's a huge literature from Angela Davis to Ruth Gilmore to, wide-ranging things about community. Brandon and I just finished a thing on Safe Streets, which is one of the cure violence programs. So my head's deeply in that, of a way to deal with, rather than just abolition of policing in prisons, but also like addressing that concern that you asked earlier about violence. How do we address the problem of violence? And the violence interrupters is one of the ways that I think is a great way to look at that. And there's a movie called The Interrupters that's great about that. We'll have a thing out this week in the Intercept about that. But I think really looking at like books on policing, you can see where they go wrong. Like Bradley Balco's The Rise of the Warrior Cop shows the way that we've just dismantled the Fourth Amendment over the course of a generation, and while still having all of these justices that we call strict constitutionalists, but we're just getting rid of it entirely. And then I really highly recommend Emily Bazelon's recent book on prosecutions, because, policing is one side of it, but the prosecutors, as you mentioned earlier, are another, and it's called Charged, and it's about the movement of progressive prosecutors. And I think especially people in Baltimore might be surprised. Some people here tend to think of our prosecutor, Marilyn Mosby, as a real progressive because she charged the Freddie Gray officers, but daily she's also, her prosecutors are asking for people to be held without bail in the middle of the pandemic. And I think it would open people's eyes to see on what side of that line they may think she divides. It follows two separate cases, one with an aggressive law and order prosecutor and one with a progressive prosecutor. And it's a really an amazing book.
Oh, that's really interesting. So we'll go ahead, we'll link to those resources. We'll also, when we have this video up on YouTube, we'll link to your Intercept piece as well. I'm gonna move on now to fan favorite, the lightning round. Here's how it works. I'm gonna ask you 3 questions. If you answer all 3 questions in the time allotted, one lucky viewer may or may not receive the grand prize, which is a Charm City Books magnet strong enough to hold up the scales of justice. Baynard, are you ready?
I am scared of that magnet, but yes.
That's correct. You've unconsciously nailed question number 1. Second question. In the simplest terms, what is qualified immunity?
Qualified immunity is a legal ruling that says that public officials like police officers are immune from lawsuits and from prosecutions for things that they do in good faith on the job.
Correct. Third question. What are 3 essential elements to taking your quarantine from acoustic to rock and roll?
This isn't lightning, and I apologize to the person, but I've had the opposite experience, and I've been wanting to tell someone this. So I told my band, the Barnyard Sharks, you know what, this year I'm going to learn how to make sure that I don't rely on you guys too much. It's a big band. I'm going to do some open mics in secret, wear a hat, pretend, just see if I can communicate a song with just me and acoustic. Little did I know I'd never play music with another fucking human being again. And now I sit and I think I wanted to tell this story to you because now I sit and I actually do concerts to my fucking plants at night. And they wave, and then we have this aloe that's blooming like crazy. I mean, it's got a giant stalk and it waves. So I imagine it's like throw your hands in the air, and so I can see the plants cheering, and I didn't dream that that's what I meant. So I apologize to the band and the person that maybe by not being lightning lost the magnet.
Well, you've lost 5 points by going into detail, but you've gained 3,000. Because you inverted the question on itself. You went from rock and roll to acoustic, and you made your plants grow, and that's always welcome here at Between Two Succulents. So well done. One lucky viewer is going to win this magnet. Joe's going to announce who it is, so keep your eyes on your screens. You can come by the shop anytime on a weekday between 11 and 6:30 to pick it up, or you can make an order. Maybe you order I Got a Monster, and we'll add that magnet to your purchase. Baynard, before you head out to do very serious things as a serious journalist, are there any organizations, charities, nonprofits you want to take this moment to uplift and let our viewers know about?
I as a reporter, I feel a little bit weird to suggest nonprofits. I think there are a lot of resources that people have for it, but what I do want to, something I've been thinking about so much is what y'all do is about booksellers and just the role that plays in making people want to be a writer first and then being able to be an author later on. And so I want to encourage people not to like watch this and then sneak and buy from Amazon or something, but to really buy from your local booksellers. And I guess I will say, the Baltimore Office of the Public Defender, we dedicated the book to the defense attorneys who defend the Fourth Amendment, and the Baltimore Office of the Public Defender, and Maryland's as well, is like not at all like the stereotype that people see of, they think public defenders are harried and overworked. It's some of the best lawyers in the city, and some of them started the Baltimore Action Legal Team, along with some other people that does bail relief. And so, like, if you are, especially if you're a white person, you think you believe in reparations or something, and you can afford it, then you might really should pay to help get people out on, juveniles right now. They've been paying it costs $10 a day to go to ankle monitoring, rather than being locked up in a prison where you could get COVID. And that's something that for $10 a day you could do to keep a juvenile from being held within the system, to still being in an e-prison, but safe from COVID at least. And so that's something that I feel like I'm close enough to in my work that I probably maybe shouldn't be advocating, but fuck it.
Yeah, well said. We will link to those resources. In the meantime, as we're getting those links set up, you heard the man. Head to the Charm City Books website, order his book, I Got a Monster. It comes out tomorrow. That's Baynard Woods, co-author of I Got a Monster. And a prop even. Amazing. Thank you, Baynard, for talking to me today.
Thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for what y'all do.
I'm Megan Graves. I'm the virtual bookseller. Join me back here next week for another episode of Between Two Succulents. Be safe, everybody. Bye.